What is up guys, how are you doing? It has been forever since I last made a video, however, I'm back! Why am I back? Because Cowin were kind enough to send me a pair of these, the HE5A headphones, and I'm going to try them out. Now before we get into this review, I just want to say this video isn't paid for by Cowin, but they did provide the headphones, so thank you very much to them. This isn't a sponsored video or anything like that, they just sent me the headphones to review. They've had zero editorial influence. Let's take a look. And whilst taking a look, the first thing you may notice is the price. If you go on amazon.co.uk at time of filming, they're £39.99, which makes them 1/3 the price of my Jaybird X3s and 1/4 of the price of the Apple AirPods. On top of that, unlike both of those aforementioned headphones, it has active noise cancelling, which is surprisingly not bad. Before we get to that, we have to get to sound quality, which, though not terrible, isn't great. The best way I can describe it is that the bass sounds a little foggy and the high ends are a bit compressed. It's kind of like listening to music through a blanket. It's not that it's outright atrocious, it's just flat. There isn't any real separation between the highs, the mids and the lows, and though I'm not some headphone enthusiast, they're definitely not great. However, they're £40 and they're Bluetooth and they have noise cancelling, so that almost makes up for it. The noise cancelling itself isn't too bad. The earphones each have a microphone on the outside to pick up audio so it knows what to cancel out. And after 2 weeks of using them on the tube day in, day out, I can tell you that it's surprisingly decent. Having said that, unfortunately the fit from the silicone ear tips wasn't quite as perfect as I'd like. Now part of that is probably because I'm used to Comply foam ear tips, so I decided to fit the Comply ear tips onto these HE5As, and that made them so much better. The extra sealing from the foam ear tip combined with the active noise cancelling made it impossible to hear almost anything, which if you're travelling in central London during rush hour is a godsend. Unfortunately, although activating active noise... Although turning active noise cancelling on and off is as quick and simple as just pressing the button, unfortunately it causes the music to pause. But it doesn't actually pause it, it just silences the sound while it says ANC is on or ANC is off, and then goes back to whatever was playing, and it just interrupts it and feels a bit weird. I personally would much rather just have some beeping noise and you'd feel it go from on to off, but it is what it is. There were some things I definitely liked though, and though this thick piece of cord is really good for keeping it in place, it feels a bit too thick for using whilst doing sports. However, the usage of magnets to keep each earpiece together is really useful. Not only does it stop them from getting tangled, but it also means they look a bit neater and you can kind of move around without worrying about them falling off, thanks to the combination of a thick piece here. In terms of size, the earbuds themselves are quite small, and that's because most of the smarts are within the band. The right side houses all the buttons for ANC, powering on and off, volume up and down, as well as the charge port, which is micro USB. As much as I really appreciate the fact that it is just a micro USB port, meaning you don't need some fancy bracket like you do for the Jaybird X3s and X4s, the fact it's micro USB instead of USB-C is a bit of an inconvenience. However, I do kind of understand the reason, because the fingerprint for USB-C is ever so slightly larger, which means that they can keep the unit as compact as possible. And if you do decide you want to exercise with these, my general advice would be careful. The advertising states that these are sweat-proof, however it doesn't give any IP rating, and I'm not sure how sweat-proof is. I took the back plastic off of one of the earpieces and it showed that it was all sealed inside, so you might be okay, but don't rely on it indefinitely. On the subject of relying on it, how long can you rely on its battery life? Well, that's a pretty complicated question to answer. You see, figuring out how long a battery lasts can be quite variable. It depends on whether or not you have active noise cancelling on or off, as well as the kind of music you're playing and the volume of the music itself. So I decided that going forward, we'd need some kind of standard test, something we'd use on all the headphones that pass through here to make sure that the numbers are as accurate as possible. So here's the rigorous testing we put these headphones through. It ran 3 tests in each condition, so that means 3 tests with active noise cancelling on and 3 tests with active noise cancelling off. On top of that, the music it played every time was exactly the same. In fact, I set up 50 hours worth of music in a Snappy-Tech battery test Spotify playlist, which if you really want to test your own headphones, you can download in the video description below. And on top of that, this was at full volume, so not only were the headphones at full blast, but so was the Bluetooth volume and the phone itself. To ensure there was no external interference, the phone was otherwise in airplane mode apart from Bluetooth being on specifically for connection with the headphones. So how did they fare? That was an interesting one. If you look on either the Cowin Audio website or the Amazon listing, you'll see that it states there are 8 hours of battery life, but that doesn't say whether it's with noise cancelling on or off. So I thought it'd be worth starting with noise cancelling off just to see the baseline. And that's when things were quite shocking. The first test came in at 11.5 hours of battery life, a whole 3.5 hours over their projections. So I did a second and third test and we ended up with an average battery life of around 11.25 hours. At this point I thought to myself, okay, that 8 hours is clearly for noise cancelling on and is still pretty good. So I charged up the headphones, turned on noise cancelling, started the playlist, and got almost 10 hours of battery life. That's right, it was a full 20% higher than the estimated battery life. Not only that, but tests 2 and 3 yielded the same time within about a minute. So their estimated 8 hours of battery life actually got me just over 11.25 hours of ANC off, and just under 10 hours with ANC on, which is amazing. And on top of great battery life, the Bluetooth connection was pretty solid. It wasn't perfect, and there were definitely a couple of hiccups, but there were about as many as with my Jaybird X3s, which means that they were definitely good. So what are my final thoughts? So in general, these headphones are really good. The audio isn't amazing, but they're great for £40. The battery life is truly stellar, and what small issues I had were definitely overshadowed by the great connectivity, as well as their size and ease of use. In terms of rating, I wanted to set up a system that was reusable. So all of this information was collated into a Notion page, which is in the description below. I gave each point a weight between 1 and 10. I then averaged out those weightings and made it a positive number if it was a pro or a negative number if it was a con. We then started at 5, which was the median. We added the pros, subtracted the cons, and it came out at 7.6 out of 10, which is reasonable. I think 4 out of 5 is a pretty good mark and is about right. They're not perfect, they could sound better, but for the price and considering other features, they are very good. If you want to buy your own pair of Cowin HE5A headphones, you can find them in the link in the description, or you can go to cowinaudio.com. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.